Hey there, Scabby Scummers and Gangers. Crimson Oracle here with another episode of The Dome Runners. And yes, it has been a while, but I finally have some more content. And as always, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody who listens to the show. I have been doing some streams of Rogue Trader on my YouTube channel if you want to check that out. I also have some more video content kind of scripted out. It's just a matter of getting it recorded and edited. That is slowing me down, but I should have some more videos out soon. And I'm in the middle of a house move, so my hobbying has just been very limited to just magnetizing hundreds of minis lately, because of course I had all my stuff magnetized for a while, but that was several years of producing probably a few hundred models a year, so there were hundreds of models that needed to be magnetized. And I'm nearly done, which is crazy. So I'll hopefully have all of my stuff in storage, in some safe storage for transportation, so that I can move it to the new place. And I'm really excited because I'm going to be doing a pretty big project while I restore my old desk to a new kind of format, and I'm pretty excited to show it off, but I will do more of that on YouTube down the road. So my goal is to bring the show back for monthly episodes, but of course editing is the thing that's the biggest time sink here, so it always will come down to what I can kind of practically get done. So I am glad to be back, and here we go.
So, you're an Imperial diplomat visiting Necromunda. You may have previously learned that you must always praise and respect the reign of House Helmar. These updates are to ensure proper compliance with new regulations since recent change of power. We no longer say the name Helmar. We will always and forever praise and protect House Aranthus and our noble governor, Azastium.
You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Fittsy. This is my second time on the show. It's a pleasure to be here again. I've been knocking around Necromunda sort of on and off. It was a game that I think really got me into tabletop gaming, as well as dabbling with Warhammer Fantasy back in those days and 40k. But Necromunda was the one which we always came back to play. And then I got back into things. It's a few years back, 7 years ago now, where I got back into Age of Sigmar, but where I really wanted to be playing Necromunda. And now I'm doing both, and I'm still doing a lot of Age of Sigmar because that's the easier one to pick up. But getting into Necromunda campaigns is sort of like what do you call it? It's a hobby unto itself. It's making sure those groups get together, finding people who are gonna sort of stick with it. But that's one of the things that makes it fun, though. Still.
It's something I haven't really been able to do lately, which is why I've been kind of I've just been kind of quiet. So I'm just like, I'm not playing, so I'm just not not as like invested or whatever. Happy to be talking about Outcasts today, as I think that they are one of the more fun things. And weirdly, Necromunda has gone through kind of a period of a little bit of not. It's not like it's not. I wouldn't say it's been neglect, but things have been kind of mellow. It's been a little quieter on the Necromunda front for a while. So Outcasts are kind of a weird duck. Certainly not what I would recommend as like your first in foray into Necromunda, but they are pretty unique and special. So we're gonna chat a little bit about them, and we may be joined by another guest if time allows. But for now, we're gonna start chatting about the Outcasts. So we're talking about a pretty open-ended gang, the Outcasts. So what are some of the favorite ways you could think of to kind of use Outcasts to make a gang that's themed the way you want to?
I mean, I think that's the best thing about Outcast is that ability to build up that theme within the gang. Um, yeah, there were, yeah. I mean, that leans into the narrative side of things, building up a gang where you're following a story or building a story. And yeah, I mean, well, I had one which I thought was really fun, where I focused my entire gang on trading and making money, which actually that gang's been doing very well. They became very rich, which is where some of the things that the outcasts can do is nice. There's a lot of things which hold them back, which can make it tough. Yeah, building up the gang and actually making that narrative that you want to do is sometimes tough. I had a good experience in one of the campaigns where the arbitrator helped out a little. I said, look, there's this that I'd like to use this delegation, but it's going to really hold me back. Can I just switch one of them out for a normal champion? And that helped the gang not get held back too much. But I mean, they're also probably, well, okay. I guess I'd say they're my favorite gang now. So I'm quite biased. But you have a really great chance if you want to just build an idea, put your models together, and then try to jam the outcast rules around them. They've got so much flexibility, which is a pro and a con, but it really lets you build what you want.
I know what you mean. Like I think I've probably got six different outcast gangs kind of in various states around me. Like I've been working on the uh House Green guy with the the guy with the like fancy outfit on, and the lady from the spiders with the shotgun. And so I found STL files for like Necromunda spiders
Mhm.
uh from like the old Rogue Trader era kind of aesthetic. And I think I have one of them nearby. But they're yeah, let's see, it's hard to uh I actually on
Yeah.
my end I realize I'm having it there we go. So now it's hard to see but his las gun broke off, but
Oh.
man, I'm really having a hard time getting
Yeah, the focus
okay,
is
there
really
we go.
tough.
So yeah, that guy is one of many. So I've been printing them out, and they're my, I'm just giving them las guns and flak armor and stuff, and the idea is that like it's a green like attaché and a squad of kind of green candidates for the spiders who are doing something down in the slums. Who knows? Maybe it's shady. Maybe it's training. Maybe a little bit of column A, column B, whatever. Uh, so like I also have like a water guild that I did. I've got the Lady Hera
Mhm.
delegation, or Lady Hera like project I've been working on, where I made like a lady who's supposed to be like a Yulanti like courtesan who is part of her crew, um and a like a big strapping Goliath guy, the idea, or yeah, he's from House Scream as a tribute or whatever. The idea being that she has like a crew of people who are like
Yeah.
from tributes from other houses, that kind of stuff. And you can do all kinds of stuff like that when you've got, yeah, I did one for the outlaw house with, the Rebel Lord, Lady Credo, and I did Crew of Mutants, and it's just like there's so many different directions that you can take an outcast gang in, that like that's often I'm just like I'm thinking about doing something, I'm like, yeah, probably outcast for that.
Yeah, I mean I guess that's my favorite way, is really to put together like those motley crews, sort of. I mean, it's what the book talks about, right? Like there's one figure in the middle, but then all these people coming in from different sides, and that's how my first gang built up. I had this idea. I had that the board game. that they released with a bunch of, I think, with Kill Team models
Oh yeah, yeah.
on one of them with the Rogue Trader, and I'm like, oh, I just really want to use that model. How can I use them? And then the Outcast book came out a couple of weeks later, or it got announced a couple of weeks later. So I had that box sitting around. I built her up. Then I built an AdMech dude as an attendant and another like enforcer person who'd been sent along to make sure she pays her debt. And getting into that story part was really cool. But one thing, right, you mentioned the chance to use the delegations, and that's actually one of the things that's really good about the Outcast because there's some
Yes.
fantastic models, fantastic concepts. And I started to build some cold traders because I like the idea of the cold traders. And then I realized, oh wait, no, I can use this as my Outcast gang now. And so that became, that became the new gang. But I do the thing where I guess that's sort of different choices for different people. I like that my Hive Scum all just look like different people thrown in. And that's really nice then to have this rotating cast of characters who are leading the different gangs. And then the Hive Scum, I always, then I've got 4 or 5 models that I might have to build up to do something different in the gang, but the rest, they're sitting there on the shelf. I've got, I counted them up the other day. I think there's 12 scum floating around now, so I've always got enough of them because actually you can never have enough scum. I mean, for other games as well.
Yeah, well, and then you run an event and you're like, oh, I could put out like 25 gum, and then people can recruit them if they need to expand.
Yeah.
My name is Liska in Discord, which is probably the most important place that I'm around doing Necromunda stuff. I participated in the Nova Necromunda event that you hosted. It had a fantastic time in all 3 days. And I have arbitrated 3 campaigns now. I literally just finished one last week that ran for 12 weeks. And that ended up being 13 people playing all across the DC metro area. So that was a very interesting experience, having to manage people getting games in every 2-week cycle and trying to just, like, most of my time was just scheduling, like, hey, who still needs a game? Like, who can get together on this day with this person? And just trying to manage that and do all the other arbitrator things. But I had a really good group of people. Everybody said they had a fantastic time. They're looking forward to the next one. So that is fantastic feedback.
All right, so we were talking about outcast gangs and kind of our themes and stuff. And I think I was gonna, are there any themes of outcasts that you really like that you want to kind of spotlight?
Okay, so first along those lines, I have played, I think, 3 different Outcast gangs in 3 separate campaigns now. And the first thing about an Outcast gang is you have to understand you really need to embrace Hive Scum and what they can and can't do. And I bought the full, like, I think 12 model kit of Hive Scum when it was available. And, I just kit bashed the crap out of them, and they're all unique, and I run them all various different ways. And so I like running a pile of Hive Scum in the first place because I embrace what they can do. And then on top of that, you have so many different options for your leaders and characters. Like, you can really customize it once you get to that point. And also,
Yep.
you have the hangers-ons that are available as well. And so there's a lot of ways you can take a gang, but you still have to, keep in mind that the bulk of your gang is still going to be those Hive Scum. And so it really encourages you to make those characters really stand out. And so, like, I've run the Slaver delegation as my quote-unquote leader, which I think in general, if you're starting with Hive Scum, using a delegation is the way to go because you get so much stuff with it. Now, that said, for the campaign that I'm going to be starting here in a week or 2, I think, what the core of that gang was, I really wanted to use my, I can't remember he's the bounty hunter that's basically a cyborg that drains water out of people. Aeroslagmist.
Oh, yes, like
yeah.
this, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I bought that model so long ago because it's a fantastic model. It has a lot of character in and of itself. But the
Yeah.
stats, as it is for most of the Dramatis Persona from, 5-6 years ago when the game first was relaunched, like their stats really aren't that good, especially
Yeah.
with, in the modern sense. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to use this model and use them the way I picture him running. And so he's the leader of my gang with a Vanzar house heritage that allows me to get the Vanzar spider harness and the last carbine, because he has like a last carbine in his hand. Like it's bigger than a pistol, but it's not a rifle.
Right, right.
And so, I use that as my options. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have, some other characters, but I don't want him to be the focus of the gang, because that's one way you could go. So I was like, okay, so, what makes sense? What are some other models I might want to use? Well, I have some Adeptus Orbitus kill team models that I really like. I was like, okay, well, if I bring one of those in. And so I just went through them all. I was like, I should just get like the basic guy that just has a shotgun and have him as a character in my gang. And so what I eventually came up with was that the Arbitus that's in my gang is actually the leader of my gang from a story standpoint. And he has amnesia because he was doing something in the Underhive. And, let's just say he got conked in the head. And now he has this intrinsic idea of what the law is. And I'm doing air quotes on the law as if you can see that. But he's stuck in the Underhive and he's like, none of this makes any sense. This place is hell. And I remember being in a place that in comparison was heaven. Like, I don't understand like what's going on here, but he keeps like seeing crimes happening and he keeps like just rattling off like, you're in violation of code, blah, blah, blah. And like arresting people with his pair of handcuffs that he has nowhere to take them to. And so, but because he's doing that kind of thing, he just ends up attracting people to him because he keeps saving people from crime. And he just developed an entourage that's just like following him. Then along the lines, he got Good Boy, who is an Ogren that just hangs out with them now all the time. And then, so the final thing when I wrote a story was that they're just like hanging out in their camp trying to get a settlement because they're doing an Outlander campaign where you're building a settlement. And Aeroslagmist basically stumbles into the camp and he's like, one of his legs dragging, sparking on the ground, and he's just like having trouble breathing like Darth Vader right before he's dead after Luke, basically didn't fight him. And, and so that he and the arbitrator, the Arbites, basically struck a deal to help each other out because Slagmus can provide water for this growing settlement that's just kind of like springing up. And they're like, well, there's no water down here because in case you didn't know, the Underhive is hell. Good luck finding a clean water source. Well, here's a water source that's just walking around. So if we can just keep him supplied with bodies, we can have water. Well, we'll make this work. And so that's the idea for that particular gang. And we'll just see how that story unfolds.
Yeah, no, that's it's exactly the kind of thing that the Outcasts are just so they're so open to kind of doing what you want with them. Is there anything that you don't think anything you don't think that they do well? Anything you would kind of avoid doing with them?
So again, the main thing to remember is that Outcasts are mostly a bunch of hive scum, which basically stuck. They basically just have average stats across the board. And so they can kind of do things, but they kind of can't. And so when you're building a gang, you really need the other characters. They really have to pull their weight. And so if you bring in other characters that might be fun and fluffy, like, for example, Damon had the idea of an outcast gang where your leader is like the Cador Cherub servitor. Because you could do that. Like, you can totally do it. It's a terrible idea, though. It's super fluffy and fun, but like, good luck like making that gang do anything.
Yeah, you're taking a toolkit unit that could do anything and making it completely useless.
Yeah. And so, the Outcast gang, literally, where the character comes from is your leader and the Outcast champions. And so you just got to really make them something and have some kind of cohesive idea in mind, and also make them very effective for whatever you consider very effective.
Yeah, but I'm not so good at making those, how do you say, choices that would be sensible for myself all the time.
Right. Well, so the main thing that's important is to make, and so you really got to specialize your leader. Like, he's got to really have a job and make him really good at that job. So, like in my case, Zero Slagmist, he's slow, but he's tough because you have multiple leadership profiles, and one of them is like toughness 4 with like 3 wounds, which is perfect for.
Oh yeah, yep, the 4-inch one,
Right.
yeah.
And so, and he's kitted out for melee, and he has a short range gun, but once he gets there, he has strength 6 with versatile 3. Like, he's just going to destroy anything he comes across, unless it's another big tanky boy. And even then, he has a pretty good chance to take him out. And so, so in that particular case, everybody all the Hive Scum, their job is to basically lay down covering fire so that the Slave Ogrin, my Arbitus with a combat shotgun, and Arrow Slagmist with his whatever, the spider harness that the Vanzar get, they can get up close and do a whole bunch of damage. And they can tank, because Arrow Slagmist has toughness 4, which is already fantastic, and 3 wounds. Like, that's tanky right there. And then you got Nogrin, that's tanky. And then the Arbitus, only thing he has going for him right now is he has a 4+ armor save, because he's just a standard champion. But a 4+ armor save in the Underhive when you're first starting out is amazing. And so these 3 models can just go forward slowly and tank any fire that comes at them that I can't suppress, and then they'll do, hopefully, just rip up whatever they come across.
Fitzy, I bet you think anything you would avoid?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that you just can't do. I mean, they're not even bad at it, but I was going to say, I mean, you can't go elite. So you can't go, okay, I want to give special weapons at something, we mentioned chatting before the show, because you've got such limited options in terms of what you give your Hive Scum. There's a couple of side cases where you can give all your Hive Scum bolters or something like that. That might be the one case where you could try to go a little more elite. But otherwise, you're going to have this sort of imbalance in the game, which comes with that risk. The leaders, like Liska was saying, the leaders got to do things, which tends to mean the leader's also in danger. You can't have a leader who just sits back and hangs around. Which goes together with that. It's sort of fun. It's sort of exciting, because every time the leader gets hit, if the leader dies, that's the end of your gang. And in a weird way, you're sort of restarting. But the thing that I found, and maybe it was just something that didn't work for me, was I tried to focus one of my gangs around going close combat, but they're just not good enough at any one thing to go heavy in on. And then when I would come up against other close combat gangs, they would struggle. When I would come up against range gangs, they were struggling. And I found that really the only thing that worked was sort of leaning into that diversity. So if I have a problem, I can react to it throughout the campaign. Or I was also doing a fair bit of skirmish when I started out with Outcasts. I could switch things in and out. Okay, so I'm having trouble dealing with with more terrain on the board. Then I'll put a psyker in who can do something without line of sight. Or I'm playing in more open board. Right. I can bring in a long rifle with Overwatch, or bring in an infiltrator. But okay, I guess you could lean in that direction of going, okay, the leader and a bunch of champions infiltrating, and the Hive Scum sitting at the back. But at least for me, that doesn't sound like something that works. And I'm no tactical genius. I'm very much more on the side of, what do I think my fighters should do in a situation, which sort of works out for me. But
I think that you have a point there, which is that, like, there are gangs in the game that are really tuned for close combat, and you are never going to be able to do what they do with your Hive Scum. Like, it's just not feasible. So,
My fear of corpse grinder cults is, I think, maybe infamous within the Discord chat at this point.
yeah, no,
I
it's
don't know how to
totally
deal with them with
fair.
Outcasts.
I mean, like
Uh,
even like a death maiden heavy Asher gang,
mm,
like they have
yeah.
threat saturation that you're just not going to get because of being able to take a wider variety of like poison weapons and stuff. Like you're not really getting that. You don't really have that the specialization necessary to kind of
Yeah.
do that very difficult thing, because being a pure close combat gang is very difficult. Like you have to be very sneaky, like the Delac, like
Mm.
their cheaty infiltrators with
The knuckles.
their weapon
Yeah,
through all armor. Yeah, no,
I
they
love to play them, hate to play against them.
exactly. There's just nothing quite as intense as that for that specific function in the Outcast list. So yeah, they really do. They're more of like a mid range, board control, like that kind of thing where like you can kind of choose to be more uh utilitarian, I guess. You're kind of you can rely on extra bodies and stuff to kind of, but you're not quite as hoardy as Cawdor, say, but you have access to better gear than Cawdor do.
Yep.
So there's also that.
So something for context. So the campaign I ran a Cawdor gang, but because I was using the Lore Keeper's podcast idea that basically just really saying to me, I was trying to do it anyway, which is the Cult of the Bolt, where you don't have any guns. And so I was running Cawdor, where the only guns I had were my Jews, which all they had were stub guns, which is I was using that to model bows and crossbows. And all my fighters only had melee weapons. And I had a ton of fun playing that way. I didn't think it was going to work at all, but it turns out just because of how many bodies you're bringing, like it's totally fine. And
That makes sense.
I think one of my Juves ended up with 4 kills with those dual stub guns. Like, it is amazing how good 2 stub guns is within 6 inches.
Oh yeah, the +2 to hit is
Yeah.
fantastic.
And so,
Especially on Cawdor.
yeah.
It's like you're hoping for 5s otherwise. Like, yeah, no, a 3-up shot is very, very attractive when you're a Cawdor player.
Yeah.
And all it takes is getting into like very close range where you might get killed.
Right.
Who cares?
Yeah. And then the other thing with a movement of 6, like basically within a turn or 2, like I'm at that short range. That gang worked because all the pieces just ended up synergizing together in ways I didn't anticipate. And that's a lot of ways how Outcasts end up functioning, is that you end up discovering synergies you didn't understand you even had. And
That makes sense.
what really helps with that, I would say, is having some of your scum kitted out for melee and having some of your scum kitted out for range fire. And you'll just find ways to make them work well together.
And one nice thing is that you can buy trading post melee weapons and give them to them. So you're not like, when you're going in a melee direction with them, you're not kind of pigeonholed out of those things, the way you are with, like, you can't take special weapons or whatever. So I think one of the things I really like about the Hive Scum is that you can like really go out there and do any kind of you can go out and do any kind of like character as your leader. You can elevate literally anyone, which is really open ended and fun. And so I was curious if there are any that you really think would be fun to do, or that you have done that you think are great or whatnot.
And general, I would say with your leader, again, you need them to be as specialized as you can. Have like a role, like is he going to be a DPS? Is he going to be a tank? Or even is he going to be a healer, which is kind of a thing in Necromunda that a lot of people don't realize you can do. And you can really do some really interesting stuff if you get a leader that has psychic powers and biomancy, because there's a lot of
Right.
really interesting buffs and healing stuff in there that gives you some really interesting options on the table that can just be fun to play with. And that's the other thing I'd say is really important to understand if you're running Hive Scum, is that you're playing this gang to just have fun and play in the space that is Necromunda. Don't go into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to build this awesome gang and it's going to just wreck face. Like, it might happen. You might get lucky. But you should just be like, hey, I'm just going to see how like things play out. And if you go into that with that attitude, I think you'll be set up for success in ways that you cannot comprehend going into it. All that said, again, I'd say if you're starting a Hive Scum list, the very first thing you should look at are the various alliance delegations, because you get 2 to 4 models.
For sure.
And all of them already have kind of like a built-in specialization. But like, I found that looking at them, that a lot of them kind of weren't designed appropriately, and they're missing something. And so like for the slave delegation, which I can speak to the best because I've run it twice now, the leader, which is the I want to say Chain Lord, and I don't know if that's actually the right name. We'll go with Chain Lord. He starts with light carapace armor, a chain axe, and a shock whip, which is a very interesting mix of equipment. And he's toughness 4, and he has, I think, 2 wounds. So he's relatively tanky with his armor and stuff, but he really doesn't start doing anything until you can get him Nerves of Steel. Because until he has Nerves of Steel, he only has a 4-inch move, and he's going to get shot, most likely, because, again, you're an outcast, and the most obvious threat on the board is going to be your actual leader. And so he's going to take a lot of fire trying to get in range so he can hit somebody with that chain axe or his whip. And so I found that he just ends up getting pinned a lot until you can get enough XP to get him Nerves of Steel. And then suddenly he becomes this wrecking ball that's just slowly going down the table, and he can tank for the entire gang. Because with Nerves of Steel, toughness 4, 2 wounds, and a 4+ save, and then you add an armored undersuit for just 15 credits, now he has a 3+ save.
Right.
And he can just tank just about anything, especially in the beginning of the campaign. And
that's brutal.
Right. And then he has a stem slug stash as well, like built in. And so any turn you need to turn that on, he's shrink 6, toughness 6 effectively, with a 3+ save and a move of 6, and with a versatile 3-inch of shock whip. Like, he is, on whatever turn it is you decide to pop him off, like, he is a huge threat to anything on the table.
Yeah. No, I mean, that tracks.
But again, you have to build up to that.
Yeah, no, right. No, being strategic about kind of where you invest your levels is very important when you have a model where you haven't really been able to control a lot of the starting stuff about them. Because like there's definitely like the Water Guild have their like big
the Nauticon
tanky Nauticon guy, and you can't really do anything with him to start with, like in terms of like giving him a purpose or a function other than just go punch. And being able to kind of roll some upgrades on him, in terms of spending XP is really nice, because you can actually kind of give him more of a function in the gang other than just as the punchy guy.
Right. And considering how slow he is and he's not super offensive, like, you're actually gonna have to work to get him those first couple of experience points so you can upgrade him with something to make him more effective.
Yeah, he's almost better as like a counter charger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than anything else.
And there's a lot of models that are way better as a counter charger. Yeah, and it's something that a lot of people don't really factor in when they're doing list building, is that it's really handy to have a counter charger.
I that's for Escher. That's my whole thing. I have like a swarm of Juves with poison blades, and like their job is to tie people up so that my actual close combat threats then hit them. Like having that kind of reactive advantage is really nice.
Agreed.
Fitzy.
In general, I mean, delegations was sort of where my focus landed, in that sort of chance to bring them in.
they're really nice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they've got some cons to go with them, but yeah, I mean they form a really nice basis for the gang, and then you get to sort of bring in another champion with some of them, or bring in a pair
And
of champions with the others.
it's a chance to like actually build a gang out of them, which is like,
Yeah,
that was something that I feel like they came out with allies and it was like, this is cool and all,
yeah.
but mechanically it doesn't work very well.
I've
It's
never
really
played in a
hard.
campaign with delegations, alliances.
It,
Unfortunately, I'd like to, but it's not beginner friendly, and it's not friendly
no,
to
it's
people with smaller model pools.
well, yeah, and like the problem for me is that like you don't get them all the time. So you have to like account for the fact that like there might be like a 500-point swing in the gangs, like where you're just like, this is really hard to like what if your Cawdor gang that's already 14 models is suddenly 18 models? Like that's
Mhm.
too much. Like I
Yep.
need, I need it to be a little bit more manageable in terms of like uh whether so having them be chancy like that is it's annoying.
Yeah.
um but I will say that they're beautiful models and it's awesome to have a way to play them where you're actually just playing them as a gang as opposed to like some folks that might show up to a game every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
with
I
you
think
there.
there's a couple of other nice options. Um, I'm just missing in at the moment. What it is the Rebel Lords was where I was
Mm,
first looking at. I thought, oh, flavor wise, and yeah, I had the model from the ah, yeah, from the board game, the Rogue Trader that I wanted to bring in, and
right,
so a
right.
lot of it revolved around that. Um, ah, and then really should remember it's in the Outcast book. The named Rebel Lord, the really
Credo,
important character. Yeah,
Lady Credo.
yeah, yeah. She's also a nice one to elevate, and
But you're probably thinking
she's
of
at least
Lord Greedo.
designed for it. Not wait.
Well, Lord Credo is he doesn't have like a model at the moment.
Right.
But I did make one of him.
Yeah, the other one, which I looked at, which is sort of in that vein, and I actually then, when I was going to do it, I ended up going with a generic Outcast leader. But the bounty hunters, it's, I mean, I guess all of us have, or not, maybe not all of us, but plenty of us have one or two bounty hunters we put together for that time when you want to have a bounty hunter. And whether you bring them in as a model as the Outcast leader themselves, or actually as a bounty hunter. I think what's nice there is also a bit of that storytelling. Yeah, it gives you a reason to be in the Underhive,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
generally where my gangs start. Well, maybe not necessarily in the Underhive itself, but in a certain area. And yeah, then you can really build on that whole posse around them side of things. And I mean that is sort of where I like the idea of a rogue trader, regardless of who you take. It's that chance, to actually bring a recruit in without it being, yeah, with it making sense, which is not always that easy to bring in those more esoteric models.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that for me, that if there's one model that I would do it with, it would probably be Strix. Just because like I'm never
Yeah.
going to like play a Vansar gang often enough where like I'm actually going to get to use the Strix model with any reliability that I made. And so I'm like, well, then I guess I would probably make a Vansar Outcast gang with Strix as the leader because then you could have him every time. And then you still get all the Vansar, like the access to trading post stuff from the clan alliance. So that's it at least gives you the opportunity to kind of do a theme thing. And the guys are a little bit worse, and maybe that's going to be more interesting than like having all your guys be the two up to hit ballistic skill like gods that they always seem to be. So that's probably one I would do. Now, one thing I thought was interesting when I was going through the rules, because I haven't played a clanless gang, but I'm curious at what your
Mhm.
thoughts are. Uh, Clanless gangs they ignore rules that are related to being law abiding or outlaw. So like they can do kind of anything. They're sort of below the radar. Do you think is there any like kind of stuff like fun idea you could do with that? Because that's an interesting concept to
Yeah,
me.
there is so much. I don't know if it's the worst thing about Outcasts, but it's certainly been one of the biggest pains in the ass for. I'm actually using 2 clanless gangs at the moment in 2 different campaigns, and okay, yeah, I'm using some of the same things, but the best thing about it, or the is it? It doesn't feel like it's open to abuse, but of course it is, like everything in Necromunda. You can take whatever you want, hangers on and brutes wise, which means some really nice mixing and matching. I mean that chance to, I mean it's good to have access to the black market, and then do mean
Yeah,
things like, oh, okay, well, I was thinking of the heretic, but okay, you get that normally as an outlaw. But then on the other side, oh, I'll take a tech merchant as well, upping my chance on the black market, and you get to some really nasty stuff. So I really like taking the tech merchant when I can, because it also makes it way easier for that access for the leader and the champions. Some nice tricks there. The connected trader is another one of my favorite hangers on, just in general, in terms of I'm somebody who likes to keep 100, 200 creds in the bank, and why not make more money out of that with a connected trader trick? But that part's the good half of it. The bad half is the way it interacts with the rackets in Law and
right.
Misrule is a little complicated, and I think that was the worst one, where it's just you have to keep asking the arbitrator, and that's something that can be annoying. If you've got an arbitrator who likes to deal with those things, that for sure makes it easier. Yeah, the other nice one there is actually that you can sort of swap. I'm trying to think actually. I saw it in the house favors table, which we're using in one of the campaigns. In the end, there was a house ruling about which one I had to use, but otherwise, theoretically, I could pick and choose which tables I would be working from. So not all of them, but there's a couple there. And honestly, the outlaw one is pretty good. And so being an outlaw, getting access to those outlaw benefits, but at the same time, more or less operating as a lawful gang. It's something that
Yeah,
I like, but it is one of those layers of complexity on top of what is already a complex gang to put together in terms of a list.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah, it provides interesting opportunities, but also complexity, which can
yeah,
be
yeah.
a bad thing.
Yeah. So I mean, I really like the fact that I can just take the lawful hangers on and at the same time take a sump beast.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
and
some beast alone.
yeah, it's. I mean, okay, yeah. So I have see, this is the problem with Necromunda, right? You take models from wherever, and then you have no idea what they're originally called. I always call it ah the the big hairy monkey from Dark Elder, with
Oh,
like a bony face.
Urgle.
No, no, like
Oh
it.
no, no, the other one. The
Yeah. And I did it up with a little bow tie, so I love using it, right?
That sounds awesome.
Chimerics, right?
No, no.
So you definitely need to post a photo of that online because I cannot figure out what it is you're talking about. But it sounds awesome with the bow tie. I need to see that.
It's something that pretty much nobody used, I think. Yeah. But okay, I mean, it's one of those good things for. I think Outcast is good for people who like to break the rules a little and use something which is a little stronger. Because at the same time as taking a Sump Beast, where normally I go, okay, I feel a bit bad about taking a Sump Beast because they're good for the points. On the other hand, you've got all those Hive Scum, which maybe I'm terrible at using, but feel like they weigh the gang down, and you don't know who's turning
Claude
up
Fiend.
in a random fight, stuff like that. A what? A fiend?
Claude Fiend.
Oh, fiend. Yeah, yeah, that sounds right.
Yep, the big
Ah,
kind of
yeah,
gorilla-looking guy with the bone
yeah,
face. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, with the really nice tail up the back, and yeah, well, unfortunately in resin, but
yeah. I don't know if they. I don't think they ever did a plastic one.
no, no, and they got well, you can't really say squatted anymore, but yeah, they got removed from the range now.
That's so funny. I hadn't really thought about that. You can't say squatted anymore. Uh,
I mean, maybe they come back again in
squats
20,
are so back
20 years, 30 years.
that there's 2 different squats out now.
Mm, mm.
Well, so remember, the Legions of Votan are not squats.
Yeah. So they say.
Yeah, that is what they say.
Yeah, they don't.
A stunty's a stunty is what I say.
I haven't seen any land trains yet.
That's
I
fair.
still want that to come back.
But we do have trikes, so I feel like
Yep.
we're on the way there.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what comes out in this book.
We just need the like GW to like do a resin upgrade kit for the land train that turns it into the squat land train.
Well, what I really want to see is back when squats were a thing in Epic. They had, what was it called? Like the Leviathan or something. It was literally just a gigantic train engine that was like half the size of a Titan.
Yeah.
Like I want to see one of those.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
At 40K scale. Like, it'd be great.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. Not very practical for Necromunda.
You could make it the terrain.
Much like the full-length Ridge Hauler, which is also like wildly impractical, where it's just like, your rules don't really make any sense when you have something that a single model that's this long. Like, how do you not have rules for like sections of it or something? Like, it can't even like. There's no explanation of how it deploys. Like, how does it deploy?
Well, so the problem there is that all the vehicle rules are basically just half baked anyway.
Yeah,
and if you can embrace that, then you're fine.
Oh, right. I mean, you have to just think of the Ridge Hauler as kind of it's kind of like a little bit like comic relief, It's just, like you can't treat it too seriously, and you just kind of use it like put it in the middle of a game for like for a special mission or something, but like please don't take the Ridge Hauler as like an everyday thing. I having done it, it's not worth it.
Well, I think the gentleman on the Necromundown, I forget the actual name of their podcast, had it right. If you have Ridge Haulers, either everybody has one or nobody has one.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I will admit that like my Ridge Hauler was not tuned for like violence. It was initially it was rocking heavy flame, or it was rocking flamers and like side sponsons, and it never did anything. So eventually I knocked one of the flamers off and put a long rifle in its place, which then also never did anything because it's a BS like 4-up vehicle. It's just not with a single strength 4 shot. It's not exactly changing the game. I never actually lost the Ridge Hauler. I think one time it fled, like it broke or whatever morale wise and
weird.
But that was it was never seriously damaged. Especially once I added a few of the like the trailers or whatever, it just became unkillable, and that was fine. It was flippable. It was very flippable. It was very tall. Because I felt the only practical way to get around the train issue was to make the containers go up vertically. So my cathedral just got higher and higher.
Yeah, I forgot you built that cathedral.
Oh,
which,
yeah.
for anybody that hasn't seen it, like go find a picture of it. It is amazing.
I'll put one up for the video for the folks watching on YouTube. I'll put one up, a picture of it up, because it's one of my proudest creations. Just like when I had the time and the energy to just to fully go into an idea that was perhaps the most impractical thing I've ever come up with, but also was just perfectly on theme for Condor, because impractical is what they do.
Yep.
Yeah, that thing was so Necromunda.
So all right, so obviously we like the delegations as a Outcast theme. There's some characters who are fun to theme it around. Are there any clans that you think do well as Outcasts?
Yeah, I've only done the Cold Traders and Clanless. Yeah, I mean, there's I mentioned the thing earlier, the sneaky trick going with Co-Iron, I think is the one. to get
It's
access to
not.
bolters for everything.
I
Oh,
I checked. It's not co-iron.
oh,
It's
yeah.
definitely the
Who was it?
I believe it's the Unmyoto coven,
Animoto. Ah, okay.
because
Yeah, yeah.
one of it's the null. She has a bolter.
Oh, right.
Ah, right. Yeah. So that's. Oh,
And I remember from building her. That's why it was in my
yeah.
head. Because I had
Okay. Yeah.
converted all the noble delegations, and she was the one that had a bolter. Like the other one,
Yeah.
she had a bolt pistol. The co-iron leader, she has a bolt pistol, which in her hands might look like a bolt gun
Ah,
because
bolt
she's on
pistol.
the spell side.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. She is. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of. At least for me, that's the one thing which seems to be the benefit is opening up that access. But yeah, having gone with cold traders where what was it? It was opening up bio boosters and armor weave was sort of helpful, but
Right.
I mean, I tend to be maybe I feel like I roll well enough on the trading post anyway that it doesn't make such a big difference to me. And the downside of it was enough for me, so to say, to speak with my arbitrator about buying my way out of the allegiance and to switch to clanless for 500 creds in one of the campaigns. I mean, that fit with the story of being in debt to the cold traders
Right.
and making it a little bit different. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
no,
mean,
that's
for me, I'm
a nice
clanless.
narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Honestly, I feel like like there's definitely an element of kind of getting like a little bit pigeonholed with the various allegiances. Um, let's see. What about mutants? I know I have had a little bit of a dive into the mutant rules. You guys have any thoughts on the mutant gang? Because I could talk about it for a minute.
Well, I'm going
Oh,
to talk about it for a minute because I'm not very familiar with it,
go
what it
ahead.
can do.
Oh,
I know
okay, yeah,
and I'm not interested in running mutants. I have way more other projects already on the back burner. Like that's something I'm going to be doing anytime soon. What I am going to be doing is building
Yeah.
a bunch of brainleaf zombies for events, which I guess I could run them as a muty gang.
yeah. I think that's one of those nice things. I mean, sort of fitting with the Outcast theme of being able to take models that you can't use somewhere else or not as easily. I feel like the mutant rules sort of open that up a bit. But
Yeah.
I've always looked at them as the idea of I would take the same one on everything in the gang instead of mixing and matching or going that route. I mean, in terms of sort of changing the way a gang plays, I quite like the Ice Stalks one for opening up
Hmm.
the vision arcs because I found that really helpful with actually with Lady Credo. This time I can remember her name and getting extra -1 for cover is pretty nice. Especially because I hate playing Bantar and making them hit on a 3+ would be nice.
Yeah, everyone
Um,
Yeah.
cards fair.
nah. I mean, my most common Bantar opponent, he's actually pretty good. He tries to spec them into close combat, at least a little, which makes playing against them a whole lot more fun. But yeah, some of them, they're although they sound nice, I think it was Horrific Appearance, I think it was called, which is just horrible. It's fearsome plus nerve test within 3 inches. So if you want to get
Oh,
really mean
right.
about a gang, yeah. So you want to activate? Oh, you're in combat with me. Take a nerve test, and then take a willpower check, right? It's yeah. I'd be a bit worried about some of that. There's also the one with the 4+ save on every model for 25 creds. Because that was the one I think Scaly Skin, because I thought that would be a really cool chance to
Yeah.
sort of take some Flesh Eater Courts actually, and
Right.
use some of
Right.
those models sort of, and maybe put something. That was my idea at the time. I sort of read the list without really looking at the rules and thinking about those points balances. Okay, and it's also one of those projects which I don't know if I'll get around to because the gimmick of doing it, I don't know if it's worth having a whole gang with all those conversions for
You really
myself.
have to commit to
Mm,
playing like the cavalcade of weirdos, and
yeah,
yeah, like you were saying, like you can abuse the mechanics to make
yeah,
something that's maybe perhaps too much like everybody getting 4+ saves for 25 credits. I mean, like that's a lot.
yeah. I think it was
and
25, but still, I mean,
Still,
25,
yeah.
really good.
which like that usually you have to spend 15 credits for armor and then another 25 for an undersuit.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you're talking about a pretty. I mean, it's not completely inconceivable savings, but you can you can overdo it.
Yeah.
So I really like it from the point of view of like it gives you the opportunity to do like a really thematic
Mm.
gang, that kind of has like it's like these are like the weirdest of the weird and they've all come together and it's like the Necromunda's version of like the X-Men, but they're just all like these like horrible, gribbly little monsters. But like having the wing membranes is great because they can't
Oh, yeah.
fly. They can just kind of glide, their movement characteristic. But that's really fun because like, you're not having to take tests in order to make these heroic leaps. Um, and so it's the kind of thing where the only thing I think it's missing is I think that you should be able to have your leader be a psyker and still be the outcast. It'd still be the um, mutant. What's the term for it? Uh, I don't know. They're like allegiance or whatever.
Yeah.
Affiliation. Yeah. So they're clan. They have to be
Oh,
clan
right, of course, because
so they can't.
you take it as a mutant archetype, right? So then you
Oh,
can't
right. Yeah.
Yes.
take weird archetype. Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds like one to ask the
Exactly.
arbitrator because, I mean, that'd be fun, but
So,
yeah, I mean, there is also that possibility to take that 4+ willpower psyker with free selection of the psychic powers, which is pretty easy to make a mean leader.
Yeah, but I just think I think it would be interesting to kind of have like to have a psyker leading like a crew of
Mm, yeah.
well, maybe you could do it with no, wait.
so keep in mind, a weird is a type of mutant in the first place.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's my thought process. Like that
Yeah.
should be available to the mutant gang because weirds are mutants. Like that but I mean, that's the only thing I'd kind of change about it. But I think it's a really unique uh
Mm,
set of different things because you are still limited by the other limitations of the outcast gang. So like
yeah.
you're not going to be kind of cheesing many of these it's more like extra flavor to make your hive scum more interesting. And it like if you think about it as like each one of these as being like a potential option, um it's uh it, it gives you the opportunity to kind of uh you've got your three or four standard guns that your hive scum can take, and you've got your pistols and a few close combat weapons, but it's pretty limited. So like having all that extra toolkit of like flavor that you get from having all the different mutations, like you could have a scaly guy, right, who's got the 4-up save, but you don't have to make him like something that's like crazy threat. He could just be like a guy who's got these horrible scales and he's got
Yeah.
like a knife, that's like represented by like a sharp, appendage or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
his mutations don't all have to kind of be like cohesive in that like going in a cheesy direction kind of approach. You can instead make it like more kind of unfortunate and mismatched, which I think would be on theme.
So if I was going to run this kind of gang, I would definitely theme it off of Futurama, and effectively they're under hive mutants, where they got people with
Yep.
tentacle arms and one eye or
Mm.
3 eyes and other crazy things. Like that was the kind of mutant game I would build because it would just be funny for me, which is what you should be doing.
Yep.
I think for me it's a weird downside, but I think I'd be paralyzed by the additional choices to go through for an entire gang the whole time, picking out another thing. But okay, I guess I shouldn't complain about that when I'm picking Outcasts to play each time.
Right.
Oh, where's your equipment list? It's literally the trading post.
Yeah. All right. So what about equipment that you like for the leaders and champions based off of the kind of the limited they're limited by rarity or whatever, things that you think are kind of useful toolkits for them.
Liska, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, let's see what I do first.
Sure. Okay. So let's see. So first of all, because you have access to basically everything, it gives you space to play with the things that you usually wouldn't be taking. And so those are things you should lead towards. Like, for example, like you could totally build a medic. Like, give them a Medicaid kit, give them a bio booster, give them whatever it is I'm forgetting about. Oh, and then you can also, get drugs, because you can administer drugs during the game. It generally doesn't make much sense, but some of them, like Spur, is a good one to apply mid-game, because like, hey, I need this guy to run because he has the objective. Well, the medic comes up and like injects him with Spur, and then he runs like 24 inches the next turn. Which, if it's a group activation, it's right now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. If you could kind of do like the House Escher apothecaries are like kind of their own force that we don't really see on the tabletop as like, but like in the background they're like a gang. And you could theoretically do something like that through the Outcasts, with that kind of toolkit, that type of leader. That's kind of cool.
Or some other things. There's a lot of movement stuff. So you got grapnel launchers, you got drop rigs, you've got the grav shoots. Like, those are things that you can easily access, and they can be fun to play with by just sticking them on one model. And it'd be, generally more fun if you put it on a model that's not very good in general. It's just, I can move around. And so now you have a guy whose entire job is to move around the table and do stuff like opening doors. Oh, so hey, opening door stuff. Like, you can get a strip kit and a lock punch that help you to do those very specific tasks. Which those equipment, especially if you put them on scum, because their intelligence is 8 and their strength is 3. They can't do crap. Like, they need equipment to do anything.
Yeah, that never occurred to me to do, and I have so much trouble opening doors with Outcasts.
Well, I'm glad I gave you one of the secrets then. Go through the personal equipment and the gang equipment list when you're playing Outcasts, because like booby traps seem pretty lame until you buy 6 of them, and then it's like, oh look, I could just mine the battlefield somewhere.
No, that's pretty fantastic.
Your ideas are so much more creative than mine in this case.
Well, part of it is because I play with people that are creative, and so I learn by seeing it applied against me. But something else that's important to understand also, especially when you're talking about Outcast leaders and champions, is you can use any skilled combination you can come up with. You can totally customize the skill combinations, and skills by themselves are great, but there are some very interesting combinations that you could stumble across that allow you to do things that no one would ever consider, because no other gang can pair, let's say brawn and shooting. Like, does anybody have that? Oh, like, I don't know what's in that design space per se, but there are some options there that, once you get to adding your second skill, you could really do some really interesting things with your characters that way.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some nice weapons that they're just sort of opened up by that skill access that aren't necessarily so easy to maybe to utilize. I mean, there's just some which I think either sound fun or I haven't actually gotten them on the table yet, like the it's such a hard word to say. The Thrud Fusel.
Right.
And the Kroot gun. There's some cool weapons that aren't, they're in that range where I think they're fair. They're not too crazy. They don't ruin a game, but but they really lift you up a little bit. But yeah, in the end, I guess I'm a bit of a simple guy because I'm often going for things like, well, okay, I've taken the sling gun a couple of times, but it's a poor version of the bolter. taking a bolt is really nice. Getting the heavy bolter in, but I mean, it's mostly I'm buying the things that I put onto the models because I thought it would look cool.
Right, which is exactly what we should be.
Uh,
And so, like, one of the things that
I mean,
is I have two extra models. One is just a girl with a las gun. The other has a needle rifle. So I was like, oh, I'm clearly going to get an Outcast champion. And because again, this is when I was running the slavers where they're doing pit fighters. I was like, okay, well, clearly you need a way to rig a fight. And so the girl with the needle rifle is who you rig the fight with. And so she shoots drugs at people to either get them crazy or to make them, pass out on the table. And so, I think the most fun I had was successfully shooting a Van Zar player with friends on.
That's mean.
Or on the other side, the flip side is shooting a Goliath player with Kamla. And so he's just like, oh, yeah, I just want to chill out, dude. I'm just going to sit here and look at the pretty colors. Like, this is great. And so to me, it's fun because you're messing with your opponent, but you're messing with them in a way that isn't toxic.
Yeah, as long as you don't play with the addiction rules.
No, it's totally fine because that guy that got friends on, he became addicted to friends on. And so now the Van Zar player had to get friends on every game to give
gotta find a hookup
champion with like a plasma gun or whatever, so he could even play, which he thought was because we're playing in a Dominion campaign where credits were free flowing. So it was like, oh, I have to buy some whatever.
Right. Yeah. So I think it was the champions are limited to rarity 8?
That's only when they're founded, when you're buying them.
Yeah, when you're founding. Right. So for when I'm getting founded, I like to kind of look at what I think are the best options for kind of getting something interesting in. So if you have an Orlock allegiance, you can get a Mind Laser.
Yeah. I actually, my heavy bolter, I start equipped so both campaigns I've used it for. He starts with a las pistol and a chainsword.
Yep. Because
of the weird profile that they have, that's still sort of alright. I mean, it's just the one attack. And then, what's it? Survivor? Yeah, Survivor archetype for ferocity access. Because that's one of the more useful things with a heavy bolter. So I have a close combat champion who very quickly evolves into a heavy bolter champion. And that is really just, I fell in love with the heavy bolter and the model itself, which I built up. But yeah, it leaves it in a weird spot where I find I'm taking a lot of las pistols on my champions. Then I'll often give them hot shot if I can. But yeah, it is sort of tough. And there is the trick to take the tech merchant though, which is again, it's a bit weird in its interaction with the Outcast rules, but should effectively. I guess that's a should, in my opinion, and at least in my arbitrator's opinion as well, which was the most important point, give you access for +2 rarity, and that gives you a lot more options at creation.
I like that a lot. I think that like, to me, I think that's a very clever approach because you're committing to hiring.
I say that's definitely how that works.
Yeah, I mean, you're committing to hiring this dude. Yeah, exactly. So like, it's not and you're kind of that eats a hired gun slot. Like, that's not nothing. So yeah, no, I think that's a like, really, I like that idea a lot because like otherwise you definitely wind up kind of having to slum it a little bit. Like, you can get a like a grenade launcher or a flamer, but like a lot of the other stuff, like a plasma gun's rarity 9. Web gun is rarity 9, so you have to be kind of like eagle-eyed about it. I really like the personally, I'm a big fan of the bolter grenade with the grenade launcher mounted underneath it. That's a really fun one. That's rarity 8. You could also do an auto gun with a grenade launcher bolted on the bottom, which is cheap and like a really good deal. The only downside is that you only get one of the grenade types. Oh well.
Yeah, I often find myself taking a long rifle at the beginning as well as one of the options.
Yeah,
sort
long rifles
depends on the type of campaign. But yeah, it sort of pays itself off. But you've got the other problem with Outcasts is where you're. Yeah, I don't know. There must be a clever way to say this. Where you're stuck on the number of champions. So once you
Right.
put a champion there, it's a champion you don't have somewhere else. With another gang, you might sort of go, okay, it's worth having that champion on the side for me to take sometimes. But I've got two other champions, like a Death Maiden and a Plasma Gun, that'll take the rest of the time. But because of the restriction for the Hive Scum, I know it's not technically Hive Scum, but 3 gangers per champion.
Right.
You've got to
Which
be careful of that
effectively
part of
is-
the rule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's true.
right. Some of the delegations have the gangers, which is actually one of the
Right.
reasons. Well, it was something nice about taking cold traders because the Voidborn scum, who are Ogrins, well, slightly smarter Ogrins, I think. Yeah, they're gangers as well, so they count against that cap. So it gives you a couple more useful models. Yeah. And
Nauticans,
who don't really need to carry anything except a grenade if you've got enough creds.
Any other kind of like skill trees that you like, skill tree combos that you like, or skills you kind of like to pair with certain gear, let us get into that, and we're kind of gonna round out, I guess.
Well, I'd say the first thing is that hip shooting like really opens up a lot of options for a lot of weapons.
Or hip shooting and a bolter, I found has been it just happened by random chance in one of my gangs. Is so much better than I expected it would be.
So the thing I came across is that a harpoon gun with hip shooting is amazing because it has +2 at short range. Now the short range is only like 6 inches, but let me tell you, everybody has fun when you line up a shot where you can hit 3 people at once.
Right.
That sounds like it might actually make the harpoon, worth the cred value.
And when I say fun, like my opponents are like, "Oh wow! Like look at this thing actually popping off. This is incredible." Because
right. No, there's a certain joy to watching a ridiculous weapon actually do its job for once.
Yeah. Right. Now I will say on the
I feel that way about the what's it?
Get a telescopic sight.
Welder.
Now you can aim and get a +3 to shoot.
Oh yeah, people sleep on the weapon attachments.
Yeah, they do.
They can be really useful, and I like one of the things that I really like to do is modify the needle gun, because it's a little bit mediocre on its own, but if you can make it so that it uses its close range bonus at full range, it's suddenly much nicer.
Yep.
Because otherwise you're basically having to get in pistol range to get the bonus to hit, which is rough.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's one of those things that makes it hard to talk about here a little, because I mean, the access to all of the basic skills, at least, you can mix and match everything, right? So there's the classics, I mean, right, the run and the gun or the Overwatch sniper. I think the one which at least I hadn't used before is the Iron Grit Heavy, or something that I want to keep alive. Iron Grit's been really nice, and then because there's another skill in Fearsome which I always forget the name of, the one that lets you roll more recovery dice. So it can make somebody really hard to take down. And then a bio booster too, right?
Right. Yeah, you can have both, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I took a wound. Let me roll 3 dice. Oh, look, it's a flesh wound. I don't care.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's...
Yeah. Oh, no, what's it? Wait, it's the one then... damn. I've got it in one of my gangs. The one where you get to remove the flesh wound.
Yeah,
as well, I think, right?
Maybe that's what Unstoppable does. You have 4+ chance to remove a flesh.
Unstoppable,
Unstoppable,
yeah. So that one's been really nice, and that just came across because I was looking at what sort of skills is actually useful on a heavy. I mean, the how do you say, the thing that sets Outcasts a little bit apart is that access to psychers.
Right.
And okay, the champs have the willpower of A+, but it's offset by freely choosing across those tables, and those tables are, well, some of them are a bit too good. There's the one in telepathy. And now I've forgotten its name. I wrote it down, but here. There's a button that says refresh. Maybe it works. I always call it the make everyone insane power. Hallucinations.
Right.
Yes.
And in the same table, you've got hallucinations, which is without line of sight in 12. And you've got and it's a basic, so you can do it twice, I think. Basic or simple. No, I can't remember which one it is. And then you've got the other one, which is line of sight, take a nerve test, and you become broken. So, I mean, one of those two, which one would I choose? I've taken the hallucinations in 2 campaigns, but never on a leader because that feels a little bit too good. And okay, I like to avoid the 2 good things, but a 4+, you're insane on 2 dice. That feels like that. So negative play experience, right?
Yeah.
That feels like it's going to sap the fun out of a game.
Right. So
But the other one, which is nice, is weapon jinx.
Right.
Because that puts maybe I'm going to be a bit mean about Vansar again. I've had some bad experiences, but no, I won't pick on Vansar in particular. But it puts the fun back in to play against plasma gangs, where you just start to go, no, you take an ammo roll, no, you take an ammo roll, and without line of sight. I mean, okay, so I'm clearly biased to the no line of sight thing,
right.
But those bonuses you get as well. Sorry, Liska?
Well, one of the main advantage of psychics is line of sight is not required.
Right. No, that's what they're usually on the squishy side. So like that, that's an advantage. It's the whole point of doing psychic powers is that it is a third avenue that's kind of not close combat, not shooting. It's its own thing, and it doesn't rely on that fundamental proximity that you need for everything else.
Right. Oh, so here's a combination somebody pointed out what you could do with the weird and the HUD Fusel is so a HUD Fusel, because it is an esoteric weapon, you can't put attachments on it, you can't do anything to it. But a Psycho with Techomancy can overcharge it to increase its strength by 2 and damage by 1. And so if you really, really wanted to, you could take your psychic test, overcharge it, and then overcharge it inherently, and now you have a strength 10 gun. With damage 3 or 4. No, it's damage 4.
That's pretty the
strongest potential gun. That is of course.
Right.
I was trying to think of other game-breaking psychic powers in there, but the one where you just switch the lights off for everybody is also a bit mean.
Yeah, well,
I enjoy that one.
Hey, I'm going to play the game the way I want to play it. Which
the problem with turning the lights off is that if you do it every game, then everyone buys all the gear, and then it doesn't matter anymore.
Yep.
But every once in a while, it is fun. It was one of the things I really liked about the Zone Mortalis, or the mission generator cards that they did for Zone Mortalis, that had all kinds of different a random thing was always in effect. There was often they were taken from the Book of Peril,
right?
And one of them was that the lights were out, which I really, really enjoyed. Another one was that the walls of all the terrain was corroded and pitted away, so it didn't provide full cover anymore. You could see through it. I really liked that one a lot.
Yeah. There are some good hazard things in there, and it's one of those things I tend to recommend to people that, although it's an additional layer of complexity, if you can roll on a table at the start and then just play that additional one the whole way through, that it forces everybody to play a little bit different, and sometimes it goes really good, and sometimes beast layers can really mess up the game.
A beast layer changes the whole dynamic.
Yep.
Where it's just oh no, everyone in the room is dead, and if you go anywhere near that room, you're dead too. So we're just gonna stay on this side of the board. And then there's also the rad one where you're just taking flesh wounds. From radiation, or it's just what's that?
Unless you're Vanzar.
Yeah, unless you're Vanzar, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's brutal. That's so harsh. Or I like the acid rain one, because that's -1 armor.
Right. That's what that does. Yeah. So the Book of Peril is awesome because it tweaks the game a little bit.
I think it's a good like first expansion to get.
Right. Because I'm trying to get that book and get the cards that allow you to just build a scenario.
Yeah, I've got those. There's also a web app that someone made that has all the card stuff that you can generate.
Yeah, but I play miniature war games. I like the tactile experience.
Of course you do. I own the cards. Don't.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those. I guess it's totally off topic now, right? I have a whole bunch of tactics cards decks. I finally used one in my last campaign because what I found that I'd do instead is because I'd have the book there, or I'd write them out with the numbers and I'd roll them. I don't know which one was the better, but there was something nice about having the cards on the table and just taking a little peek. Ooh, I could use this one now, and a bit of that mind games.
Yeah, no, there's definitely an element of that.
I find if I don't have the cards, I forget I have them. And even then, I forget I have them.
Yes.
That one you hold on to. Now's the moment. Now's the moment. Oh, next activation.
The thing about tactics cards is that like 30% of the time they're definitive, incredibly important addition to the game. 30% of the time they do nothing. And then 40% of the time you forget that you have it until after it's no longer useful.
Yeah, like I literally had a game-winning move based on a tactics card, and I couldn't remember in the moment what I was supposed to be doing. I was like, how was I supposed to win this game? Like, I don't remember. And then the game ended, and I was like, oh yeah, I had the card that allowed me to turn one of my Cawdor into a bomber. It has a bomb chest, it turns out. Like, that's how it's going to keep you from winning the game. I forgot.
Yep.
That is actually something we didn't touch on, but I think the Outcasts deck is a really nice.
It's one of the best ones.
Oh, you know, I never got that deck. I have it in the book, obviously.
But,
well, let me pull that thing.
I never grabbed that one.
Yeah,
it's good.
No, so for me, one of the things that's good about it is it's not too hard to use. So I found like some of the Delac ones, they're game defining, right? I steal the initiative, and I get to take first activation, and you play into that and that sort of thing. But a lot of them are just good. Some of them will certainly make a difference, right? Bringing extra hive scum on the board is always gonna seriously push things in your favor. But there's some really funny ones in there where somebody takes somebody out of action and they're like, oh, I get 3 XP. And you're like, no, you get no XP. Tactics card to ruin your day.
All right.
I mean, but when you draw it, it's fun to get that back.
So I just pulled my deck out here, and I'm just going to go through these real quick. There's 18 of them, so it won't take that long. All right, so let's see here. Honorless victory. Even if you lose, you don't lose any reputation. Which is one of the weaker ones, because most people in most campaigns, reputation isn't that important. Which is why our arbitrator out.
I love hangers on.
Make way important. This is one of the more interesting one. Temporary alliance. Choose an alliance available to your gang. Your gang gains the effect of this alliance during the battle, which means you better understand how all the alliance delegations work, so you understand what those special rules are. Because you can just pick whatever you want there. All right, let's see. It's personal. For remainder of the battle, all friendly fighters add +1 to weapon skill or ballistic skill checks made against the marked fighter. Like, there's some takedown, you have a permanent bonus to hit that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. Hard rounds. For the duration of both this round and the next round, both players roll 2d6 when making a bottle test.
Wasn't there a trick with using that one with another card?
Probably. So just keep in mind right now. All right, This is one of my favorite ones. Yeah. Old Faithful. A character just pulls a trading post rarity 9 item or less out of his pocket. Usually, for me, that is a web gun. But there are fantastic melee weapons on there, like heavy rock saw.
No, that's fantastic.
A mining laser. Yeah, a mining laser.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Just pull a mining laser out of your back pocket. Like you're a cartoon character. All right. Back to the bad zones. The battle just ends as if you're retreated from the field. The important part is friendly fighters who are seriously injured automatically recover, and there's no way anybody can get captured. So it's like, hey, I just want to flee and not have anything bad happen to me, so I'm just going to play this card, and nothing bad happens whatsoever. And so you could play that card and the other card and lose no rep in the process. Like, this game is just like, I'm just going to throw this game out.
That's hilarious. It's a very
Are
Outcast.
they the-
Like, just like, yeah, we're just gonna forget about that.
I've selected these 2 cards. I'm playing against corpse grinders and I'm done. No, I should stop being mean against the gangs I don't like to play against.
I unconditionally forfeit.
Yep.
Ciao.
All right, so here's another fun one. Undercover Agent. When you activate a fighter, you play this card, and you can choose for this fighter to pretend to be any of your other fighters on the field. So you can literally convert a hive scum into your leader for this activation, and then they go out of action. But you can literally win the game with that.
Yeah.
And then this one, I just like to read the title of it, Worthless. No XP is gained for the fire being taken out of action. So if somebody takes out your leader, you're like, you know what? Yeah, you don't get those 3 XP. Sorry.
So mean.
It's a nice sort of revenge. You're not killing anyone, but you're killing their hopes.
Yep.
Especially if you play that like on like a champion or something where they were gonna get like 2 XP, or it's just like, no.
Yeah, like I said,
nope.
Like, hey, you're gonna get 3 XP for that. Nope. All right, so this is a good all around one. Lucky score, get an extra D6 times 10 credits at the end of the game.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll do.
And campaigns where you don't even have money, for the most part, that is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the Outlands campaign.
Right.
Money is pretty tight.
Yeah.
You're not getting credits from your holdings or whatever. So yeah, you're really like extra D6 roll every game. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, not every game. I mean, unless you're choosing or whatever.
Yeah. But it's lame to choose. I think it's way more fun to randomize it. So that's what I do. Even if it says
Agreed.
I'm randomizing it. All right. So here's one that's hard to understand how to use properly. Play this gang tactic when a friendly fighter is taken out of action. This fighter automatically suffers memorable death as if a roll of 66 had been rolled. The important part is the fighter's cost and credits is then added to your gang stash. And so if you have a fighter that has a whole bunch of random equipment, but he's also suffered several injuries, and it might make sense to retire him, how about you get him killed and convert all of his value into credits? Now, I had some Codor Juves that, because of their advancements and whatnot, they're worth 150 credits, but they were still Juves.
Yeah. Actually, a good way to get rid of that advancement bloat.
Right. All right, and then weird occurrence. You get to just generate you have to take a willpower test, but you can just make a random one of these 3 psychic powers just manifest. Chronomancy, which is freeze time. Misfortune, which is I forget what Misfortune does. It's one of the divination powers. And Molten Bolt, which is a really good shooting attack.
Molten Bolt is the best fun. Oh. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of rolling to make it work, but yeah, pulling that one out as a surprise attack is good fun.
They definitely are packing a variety of very interesting tactics cards there. Like, that was like I feel like the kind of stuff that you couldn't necessarily give to a house gang where it would make sense. Like pulling out like a random weapon from the trading post is really that's hilarious. And being able to just nullify the effect of the game is really funny, or nullifying the someone else's XP gain. Like, that kind of stuff is very it's a little more outside the box, I feel like, than a lot of the other mechanics that other gangs have access to.
Yeah.
And then there's Qadar, who I find the most confusing mechanic.
Do you just mean the face dice? In general,
the stuff it's just all like a whole extra layer on top of everything else that just like, it doesn't quite gel for me. and it's all very like situational. So like it depends. Like playing in
Mm,
the Ash Waste, it's just and like I chose a
yep.
thematic belief system for my leader, and it resulted in just not getting to use the faith powers really at all.
Yeah. I think that's one where I try to pick one which had one easy one to use and just keep spamming that, which
Yeah,
sounds a bit boring. But
yeah.
yeah. Sometimes yeah, maybe I'm getting old. No, I've always been that way. But yeah, sometimes those layers of complication get to be too much.
All right, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to step off. But before I
All
do that,
good, all good.
Alrighty.
the combo power that Fitzy was thinking about that Outcast can do. Like, so remember, if you have choose two, you could do this. So here it is: rise from the ashes for the duration of this round and the next 2 rounds. You automatically pass all bottle tests.
Ah,
So you
that's
play
the
the
one.
one where your opponent has to roll 2d6 for bottling, and you don't care. And you can literally choose to take both of the cards every game.
You can banish them.
And
That's so hardcore.
yeah, and it's
You're
like
just like, no.
you can literally make your opponent bottle out turn one.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
in some scenarios, that's one of those things where you just shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
But
Obviously, if you use it that way, your arbitrator is going to tell you that you're going to have to start rolling for your cards every game. But it's fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
that's
only way I've played is to always randomize them and do the ah
Yeah.
what is it when you get to select you randomize a couple extra and then you get to throw a couple away. But the
yeah,
open access
yeah.
to those cards, yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's too
I
much.
mean, it's not the only deck that's like that, I think, but yeah, like as the other one I'm thinking
All the
of.
house decks, like
Remember, it's only a war crime. It's not a war crime the first time. Good night.
right
Yeah, good
later.
night, mate.
Uh, anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think we've pretty much covered the outcasts in some degree of thoroughness, in as much as one can with a faction that is the complete like rules. The rules for the whole game are just like, yeah, just pick and choose which ones you want to use.
I mean that you could pretty much no, you could certainly run a campaign which is just outcast gangs and everybody
For
have
sure.
a gang that feels different as well.
And it would be
I
a fun kind of equalizer
yeah.
for the some of the like rougher edges of it's actually kind of closer to the original Necromunda in terms
Yeah.
of like you have less of the kind of intense rules from the faction rules standpoint.
Yeah. I think
And
you
you're
bring everybody a bit closer together, right? Which was old Necromunda. The gangs had a little bit of flavor on the side, which is a bit like what Outcasts are, and a whole lot of grunts with pretty boring
They were
weapons
all
most of the time.
very similar stat line and gear. Yeah, did a lot more differentiation with this edition. So yeah,
Mm,
it's an interesting idea. I think it would be fun.
yeah. Yeah, wouldn't it might be a nice way to mix up, like if you've got a group where you've got people who have been playing for a while. I mean, because yeah, you can take a gang's models and still use them as
Right,
outcasts,
right. You could be
really
from
without
that
much
house.
trouble.
You can make
Yeah.
a clan alliance or whatever, and like still
Yeah.
have access to the gear. You're just a little bit. It's less tweaks. You've less like you can't gene smith everybody, for example. Like that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yep. Everybody doesn't have 2+ ballistic skill. No
Yeah,
more.
exactly.
Like it was like no, you could infiltrate your leader and all your champions with with literally any gang then.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, that is accurate. Any gag could spec into that direction. It's a commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Like
it goes for any gang, right? Where you have to be a bit careful to make sure that you don't fall into that trap of using the most powerful things all the time. And yeah, to find that fun in building the story with an outcast gang, I think it's really rewarding because especially coming in from a bit of that underdog side, right? At least in general, I'd say outcasts are known as one of the harder gangs to play campaign wise,
yeah, yeah.
but it's satisfying when you can make that work regardless and have fun
Absolutely.
doing it.
All right. Well, thanks so much for chatting, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. I'm gonna be trying to get at least like an episode out a month on the now going forward. So back to kind of doing this on the regular. But have a wonderful new year, and adios.
Awesome. Yeah, New Year's to you too.